Hello, YouTube land, and welcome to the Buddy Martin show with this other guy, Brenden Martin. This way, that way, Martin, same guy, not really, same eyes. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're happy to have you.
Hi, Brenden. Hi, Dad. Just getting that in there real quick.
I was going to get to that whole part. I just wanted to make sure we had an audience before I said, "Hey, Dad, how are you tonight? You were busy at the quarterback club tonight. How was that?"
Do I talk now?
Yeah, you go. That's called a segue. We're segueing into your comment now. So,
I had a terrific time at the quarterback club. Thanks for asking. I saw my old friend Ron Zook.
Zooker.
I got up to say a word, and I said, "I'm glad to see Ron Zook here tonight." We've kissed and made up, and he said, "Bullshit."
Well, there you go. Well, I don't know if we can say that on YouTube, but that's okay.
No, he just did.
That's all right.
I meant to say BS.
Yeah, BS.
I didn't say. I was just quoting somebody else saying it.
Yeah, that's right. It's just a quote. He's Buddy Martin. We've got in the orange and blue room, Allie Peak Wilbur, one of my favorite nights of the week. She'll be in here shortly. Later on,
one of your favorite nights. It's my favorite night.
Well, it's your favorite night. I don't want to discriminate against our other guests, trying to be equal opportunity love to all of our guests. But Allie is probably my favorite. So we're going to talk to her in just a moment. Well, later on, we're going to have David Moulton. We're going to be talking about all sorts of topics tonight, including what Billy Napier said at practice today. We're going to get to your comments, all of that good stuff right here. And, we're going to tell you those 11 and 15 people who are just joining us. Hey, smash the subscribe button. Smash it, smash it, smash it. Bottom right-hand corner. It says YouTube. You just want to make sure that you do that, and we are on the air.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Well, we are back on the air. One of the probably favorite opens somebody told me in all of YouTube land and live streaming. We are joined now by the one and the only Allie Peak Wilbur. Allie, welcome to the program.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Wednesday is one of my favorite nights as well.
We made Lauren Meadows jealous. Yeah. He just put a note in there saying, "You should be Tuesdays and Thursdays." Of course, that's when he's on, so he actually said that. Sorry, Lauren. Sorry. No.
Sorry, Lauren. Sorry, everybody.
This is our favorite, right?
Allie, how are you this evening?
I am doing good. I am. It's been a crazy day. I'm wearing my PTA hat. We're in the process of selling popcorn to try and grant teacher grants at our school. So you've probably seen me all over social media trying to sell some popcorn, sell my soul so I can grant some wishes from some teachers. But
I'm right there with you. I'll be selling chili cook-off tickets here very soon, and MAPS testing starts tomorrow. So
oh yes,
it's all the joys of
that's one of your strong suits, Brenden. Math.
No, MAPS, buddy. MAPS.
Oh, okay.
MAPS. I know. Yeah.
You're not much on MAPS either, by the way.
Neither. Not much of a school person, nonetheless, but it's okay. And nobody really cares about that. Welcome to everybody to the show. I hope you're all having a good evening out there. Buddy, you want to take off the top? You you sent me a list of things you wanted to talk about. I've been deep in math homework, so why don't you take it?
Well, I mean, I don't have to have a list when I have Allie on. I just ask her a question, wind her up, and she goes. We don't have to worry about it. So she's had some terrific posts this week. I know you had your buddy Stephen Harris on.
I did.
I did see that.
The peak at the Gators with Allie Sheldon. he's an interesting guy because he came back in his last year and kind of got in the doghouse a little bit, came back and played fantastic down the stretch.
Yeah.
So tell us what you learned from Stephen Harris.
Steve is he's such a good guy. He's such a genuine guy. I've liked him, for 20 years now at this point. But that was one of the things we actually talked about, things that were left on the cutting room floor of Swamp Kings. And that was one of the things that he talked about, that like they had kind of cut out the fact that he had gotten in trouble, came back. He actually mentioned that he graduated from the University of Florida. It's something he's really, really proud of, that he was able to, kind of make that 180. I can remember, this is such an inappropriate story, but I can remember being in Publix and him pushing his shopping cart. And he had, I think, 2 kids at that point while he was playing football. And he's walking down the aisle and I saw him and he's like, Allie, don't ever have kids. Don't ever have kids.
Oh, you took his advice, all right.
No, but this is 20-year-old Steve Harris, and you probably remember this from practice. But I remember coaches holding his kids on the sideline at practice. I mean, he had a family really young, had some obstacles that he had to overcome, and he did that. And he coaches his boys now at Carrollwood Day School, and it's just so neat. I get emotional looking at these guys who we really grew up with, right? That have become such great men, such great dads, have really done wonderful things with their life. And it was cool to see, but he is an interesting guy. I mean, you could do a story just on him because he had a lot of obstacles that he had to overcome in his life.
Well, let's tell it like it really is. Accountability, responsibility for your children. Mm-hmm. And I think we both know Urban Meyer did a fantastic job in the area, part of which he never gets credit for.
Yeah.
I know he even affect Eric, your husband, and some things.
Absolutely.
And he made it a point to have family night because there's so many kids that didn't have dads at home.
Yep.
So people who were married or had girlfriends or whatever, they all came to eat together on Thursday nights. And because some had never seen what a family looked like.
Yeah.
And I give Urban a lot of credit for that.
There are so many guys on that team that will tell you that Urban Meyer taught them how to be a man, how to be a dad, how to be a role model. And I cannot remember for the life of me who it was, but there was somebody when they left UF, they made the statement, I will always be thankful to Ron Zook for bringing me to the University of Florida, but I will always be thankful to Urban Meyer for making me a better man. And there's no greater testament. Take the national championships away, the SEC championships, whatever else. Like, he created better people. And I do think that's something he doesn't get enough credit for.
Yeah. We're going to get to the Ben Shelton story in a minute, but we got some things to talk about with Allie first before we do that. You've had some interesting programs this past week, raising a few eyebrows about the performance at Utah.
Yeah.
We've all said a few things about that. You are a machine. You turn those podcasts out like kids. I mean, you got so many of them. And talk about some of your podcasts this week and some of the things you've learned.
I did a video that came out on Saturday where I kind of vented about the things that went wrong. And that video did do really well. I think there's like 400 comments on it or something like that.
I watched it. It was a good video.
This is something I feel really strongly about. I feel really passionately about. But the video I put out after that, I did make sure that I pointed out, and I think maybe it got lost in the first video, is that there's nobody that wants to win more than the people in that locker room. Mm-hmm. Billy Napier, that coaching staff, that entire squad of players. And so, I think it's okay to criticize the play we see on the field. I think it's okay to question play calls or to wish that things had turned out better. I don't think it's okay to question the loyalty to the program, the heart, the hard work that goes in, because so much goes into it. And there's zero chance that any of us sitting on the sidelines care about that outcome more than the people whose lives are literally affected by it, which is, Billy Napier and those players. So I do think that that's important to point out. But that said, that game was entirely frustrating. And it wasn't frustrating because we lost. It was frustrating because of how we lost. If Florida plays well or decent or whatever, and they lose to the number 14 team in the country, that is okay. This is a team we predicted to go 7-5 or 8-4. Losses are going to happen, but they looked unprepared to me. And they looked like they lacked intensity. And those things bothered me. I think you can have heart and care about the outcome and not give up every play, but still not have the intensity level that you need. And I think that's what we saw last week.
I wonder how we feel now if you ask the people at Clemson how they feel about what happened to Dabo Swinney, what happened to Brian Kelly at LSU, was worse than what happened to Billy.
50% of the teams lost on Saturday, right? Or this weekend. No. That's what happens. Somebody wins and somebody loses. And that's okay. That is going to happen. And, Clemson, they didn't look great. LSU didn't look great. Dabo has rings, so I feel like he gets a little bit of, he gets a little bit of a pass there, for looking unprepared. And Brian Kelly put together a great season last year for LSU. So while I'm sure LSU fans won't give him a pass, that's different too. But not every rebuild is the same. And I think that the Florida rebuild and the LSU rebuild were incredibly different. LSU had better players to begin with. They had a stacked locker room. It would have been easier for any coach to take that job and do decent. It is different than what Billy Napier is dealing with here at Florida.
I think it's worse because they got some stud athletes in LSU. I mean, you roll the ball on the field and you win so many games. And Dabo, say what you want about Dabo, but there were high expectations of Clemson as a potential Final Four team.
Yeah.
Beaten by Duke, by the way, all credit due to the Duke.
Looked incredible.
Fantastic. I'm sorry. Coach Spurrier was there at the game.
Was he? I thought it was great. I thought Duke looked awesome. They definitely talk about a program turnaround. Mm-hmm. He's coached 14 games too, the new coach at Duke. And I mean, clearly the chess pieces that they're dealing with at Duke are less than the chess pieces that Billy Napier came and found at Florida. So that's truly probably the real comparison we should be making. But I just remind people of this. It's such a small sample size. After Utah last year, we were all talking about how, man, Billy had turned us around in one off season and we were back. And then we were slapped in the face with reality just a couple of weeks later. So it's the same thing. Let's not get too down on us. It was one game. We don't need to get too high or too low on the outcome of one football game.
I agree with you with one exception. What Deion Sanders did in one game was phenomenal. He put a lot of heat on coaches who've had a year and couldn't do it. He did it in one game.
But also one sample size. People said that about Philly after we beat Utah last year.
Okay, but you're talking about a guy that everybody said wasn't going to get it done.
Yeah.
Who couldn't coach. I mean, who basically, look, I get what you're saying. Technically, you're right, but I saw that game and I saw most of it, and I saw the post game. I've argued with people. I said I was so impressed with how he handled his team and what he said to them afterwards. I say he didn't show out, and somebody, oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did. He crowed too. I think, man, I don't know. I've been to a few coaching press conferences. I've seen a few games. I think I know what it is when a guy tries to show off. I'm sorry, I don't agree. So let's give credit where it's due. Deion did a fantastic job. One sample size, 1 or 10. It was impressive because Brenden knows this. I know how down that program was. We have friends out there. Nobody gave him a shot of any kind. So
it was impressive. Yeah. It absolutely was impressive. And I'm interested to see how the rest of the season
you're right.
goes for sure.
Well, did you see what the tickets are going for in Boulder this weekend?
No, we didn't.
Average ticket price is $500.
That's awesome. What a cool
average ticket price.
They couldn't sell them for this. I mean, couldn't sell half the tickets last year.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's I think Allie's right to some degree. It's a sample size. Yeah. And, he wasn't expected to win as much. You want to be in that position. Now he says, what was it? Now they know we're coming. Now they know we're here. Well, yeah, they know you're here and they've got tape on it. Yeah. So, and they're going to study you. And so I think that becomes a whole different sort of animal. I think that's, and we talked about that, Allie, a little bit a couple of weeks ago. We want, Billy likes to be in this position. Everyone's expecting to be rebuilding year, but I think my opinion sort of changed a little bit. I don't know about yours, is because you're still Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, they're still expecting you, and everybody still wants to beat you because everyone loves to hate Florida.
Sure.
And so
Get
it's not
everybody's best.
Yeah. So you want to get everyone's best. So I think there is there's some degree of let's see what happens in 2 or 3 weeks. It was one of those freakish weekends in college football. I think Buddy's writing the column, says, I'm willing to give Billy Napier a mulligan. But going back to the video that you did, and I don't know if it's the same one, but it's when you talked very in depth about special teams.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really insightful because of your situation, obviously at home with your husband.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had plenty of dialogue with him about that. Plus, obviously, you're a professional. You understand, what you're watching. I don't know if you can go through the whole thing, but I just thought it was a really interesting take. If you could just kind of highlight what those high points or low points were for Florida.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, the high point is I think our punt cover team was fantastic. And that's something they lacked in last year. So if we're going to look for special teams positive, that's what it is. Punt cover team was phenomenal. If they play like that the whole season, that's huge. But the rest of the special teams were terrible, honestly. First of all, the two number threes on the field at the same time is like a Pop Warner mistake. And I haven't loved, to be truthful, the kind of excuses that Billy has said about that this week, because it's a huge mistake. And when you have three, members of Napier's army to hold your cup of coffee, there sure as heck should be somebody who is double checking every roster lineup and every combination that could possibly be sent out there. And we're talking early in the first quarter. So this is not like we're blowing a team out in the fourth quarter and guys that have never played before are going in and it just kind of happened. This is a starting lineup that this happened in. And then to find out that it's because the rosters hadn't been updated from the number change a week before, like that is a problem for me. That is a huge mistake. So that was one.
Well, Allie, not to interrupt you, it's a key point Lauren Meadows made tonight at Quarterback Club. If they hadn't had two number threes, they would have had two 21s.
Another problem.
I hate those double numbers. I hate them.
Insanity. And I understand that our rosters are so big now that sometimes that happens, but I really think we got to stop catering to these kids who have to have the same number as somebody else. Like the younger guys got to earn it or wait or whatever, because this is a huge mistake. And it cost us, because at that point they get the ball back and I'm pretty sure they scored a touchdown.
They did. No, they did. Yeah,
they did.
14-point swing.
That is a huge swing right there. And then fielding punts. It is like special teams 101, plant your heels on the 10 and don't backpedal. Period. End of story. And Wilson did it. And I get it. He's a freshman. He wants to make a play. He wants to make a move. That's a coaching thing, in my opinion. But it was even worse because the second time they sent him out, he did it again. You think that nobody said anything to him on the sideline. Like, if I'm your special teams coach, you're probably not going out there again. Not until we get back to practice and we work on it a little bit more. But the fact that they sent him out and didn't say anything to him about that is insane to me as well. And they got, that gives an incredibly long field to your offense. You are doing yourselves no favors there. And it happened more than once. We also took a kickoff out of the end zone when it was to the back of the end zone, which is also stupid. There's very few situations now with the new rules for kickoffs of, where we place the ball that you ever need to bring it out of the end zone. It's just silly. So there's probably a good 10 points there. And then you factor in a missed 31-yard field goal. You're talking 13 points. And guess what we lost by?
Yeah.
So don't even worry about all of the other mistakes. You have these simple special teams miscues back, and Florida's very much in that game, even though they had a lot of mistakes on offense and defense as well.
Well, you couple that with, if you have take away the penalties in the red zone, you're looking at a close game, and you might eke out a win.
Yeah, and that's
because it was such momentum killer, right? Because that's really what was obvious.
The ball until they get into the red zone. 5 times for you to walk away with 11 points and 5 trips to the end zone. The red zone is not acceptable. But I just, when you look at what could have been, and I don't want to take anything away from Utah, but Florida beat Florida.
Absolutely.
Florida doesn't make really pedestrian mistakes, and they are very much in that game. And football is a game of momentum. So you don't make those mistakes and you keep that momentum that you were talking about a minute ago. And it's a different outcome. But all of those things are also positives because they're fixable. Now, whether or not Napier fixes them remains to be seen, obviously. But there is some pretty easy fixes in there that maybe help us the rest of the season. So maybe it was good that it happened week 1 in a game that's a non-conference game, because you know what your weaknesses are, you know how to address them. But outside of special teams, it's intensity. And, I know we talk about Billy Napier being this calm and humble guy, and he cares about culture, and all of those things are important. But honestly, sometimes we need somebody just throwing their damn visor on the floor, or get back coach having to hold on to Urban's belt. Like, maybe we need a little bit of that, because our team doesn't play with any urgency, because
very good point.
I felt like in the post-game thank you. I felt like in the post-game presser, I wanted Billy, as Gator fan in me, wanted Billy to come out and give me some of that. Boy, I really got on him, right?
Yeah.
Boy, I really went after them. But I got the sense that he was more of like, I fell on my sword. And I don't know if you sort of got the sense of that. And I think that, although I do, and I said this yesterday, a lot of these mistakes were practice mistakes and coaching mistakes. You got 100 coaches out there. It's like this bad game of telephone. And I felt like a lot of those miscues were just, not getting the message across. But I think, even in the Monday presser, and obviously I'm sure he's different with, behind doors. And I think the Junction Boys days are sort of over now, especially with the transfer portal and this different kind of player. You've got to kind of play the game a little bit. But I just got the sense that I felt like that I really wanted him, regardless, to get on, like jump on it, give them a sense of urgency, right?
Now, a devil's advocate here, if he doesn't take full responsibility and he lays into his players publicly, I do think that there are people that are saying, like, are you kidding? A lot of these are things you should have coached them up on. Why are you blaming your players? You need to take accountability. So I do think there's a little bit of a damned if he did, damned if he didn't. But I think the message here needs to be, he's talked the talk. Now we need to see him walk the walk. These are just words at this point. So show us the change that you guys are going to make.
I agree. He did say,
Dad, and you all both remember, like, a post FSU game. Remember Billy slamming his fist on the podium, being so, like, you saw that. I got really encouraged in that, even though it was a loss. It was like, boy, he really cares, right? Yeah. He really, really wanted him. Sorry, buddy, I interrupt you. Go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to make 2 points before I forget them, because at my age, you can't hold them very long. One thing is, they didn't hurt Trey Wilson's chances much. He's starting this weekend. He's moving into the starting position as a receiver. One thing about Billy, I'm not a big fan of it's fixable and all that stuff. I've heard that many times, but they are. But here's what I like this. He did own it. He said today, some of the things happen in the game, criticism is deserved. And yes, it is. And he got it, and he should get it. So, I mean, I'm giving the guy a mulligan. I'm right to call him, but give him a mulligan. You guys can go ahead and trash him if you want to. He's my coach, Allie and Brenden. You guys go ahead and trash him. I'm giving him a mulligan.
Allie, you said this great in your podcast. Look, Billy Napier as a CEO is fantastic. Billy Napier as a professional coach, as a person, wonderful human being. You really like him as a person, right? You know him. You want to root for him. And I think that was, I don't think anyone's taking a shot at that. I just think, it's one thing to lose and say, man, that was, there is such a thing as a good loss. And a learning loss. These things were just old lessons that should have carried over and shouldn't be really learning them at this level. Stay on sides, get to the line of scrimmage, all these kinds of things. And if I'm McNeese State this week, I'm working on how to get guys to jump off sides. I'm working at throwing a lot of different combinations and wrinkles and formations out there. So you're going to have to usher in different players, really forcing that communication to get different personnel in, because that's where the struggle was, and I think that you can do little things like that. And that's something you don't you hope is fixed, by Saturday, which I think that there is a good possibility. It's not like you have to install these things. They're there. It's just you're reiterating them. Granted, you had a I call him rookie, but you had a young a center, which look, a lot of people don't understand that could be just how a center snaps the ball. You have the new cadence back there, in sort of enemy territory with Graham Mertz. A lot of that sort of like starts to play in. It takes some gel time. You expect some of that, but as much of that was a problem. Allie, I wanted to ask you one quick recruiting question. Of course, we hear all these ridiculous rumors and things that are bandied around. I'm sure you do too. I heard one interesting one today was that Billy had to guarantee to the Lagways that there would be an offensive coordinator next year. Is that something that you had heard, and I'm sure it's total speculation. I'm sure it can, but it also does make a little bit of sense. But I don't know if maybe that's an older conversation or something that happened recently.
That's not something that I've heard at all. I know the Lagways. I don't necessarily know them well, but from what my experience with them is that like they could not be more of a humble family. And just, I'll give you an example. Lagway, his high school got a new coach 2 years ago. The school just made a hire and they stuck with them. I mean, think about what that means in high school football these days, how many guys shop their program and go to wherever they could. He just played for the next coach that his team hired. And the good news is the coach they hired was great. And I asked his high school coach, like, hey, did you know what you were getting into? And he was like, I knew they had a good quarterback, but I didn't really know much other than that. It's like, this was not some arranged relationship for them or not. I would find it hard to believe that he would say that. Now, I did hear that there were some boosters that have said like, hey, listen, we want to either see some good progress this year or we want to see an offensive coordinator. And, if their progress that we want on offense isn't there this year, the smart move for Billy is to hire an offensive coordinator. I think that kind of resets the clock for him a little bit if he makes that move, and it takes the pressure off of him and it shows other people that he's willing to adapt. And I think that could end up being really important. And, maybe we'll be having this conversation the end of November and it'll be totally different because Billy has turned it around and the team looks great. But I'm of the mindset that he is just wearing too many hats himself at the moment. And I think that would be one, even if it's just a passing game coordinator. You've got multiple guys on staff at this exact moment, Billy Gonzalez, Russ Callaway, that could help you out in that department. Use them.
Yeah, I think so. And let's don't forget he's a play caller too. So he's offensive coordinator and play caller and quarterback coach. I know he's got a guy, but he really is it. So maybe too many hats. I understand why people get frustrated with that. Yeah. In today's world, it's a fast game. I agree with Shane Matthews. He said they don't need to even try to run the ball. Some naturally. Just line it up, let it fly, play fast, and go. Because they got some ballers out there, receivers. These young receivers are some fantastic.
Yeah, but they also have some stud running backs too.
They do, but according to Shane, that's all well and good. You can run, but what he sees on the field, this is a passing team, and he said they need to line it up and let it fly. That's his exact words. So I think Shane knows a little bit about the position of quarterback and offense. I trust him on that. Yep. So I thought in my mind, I had it all summer long. It was going to be a run offense with the clock changes and running backs, the offensive line. I thought, well, yeah, they're going to do that. Everybody said, well, Graham Mertz is our game manager. Shane said, no, he's not. And you know what? He's right. He's not. So I trust him saying that. So.
I wanted, before we lose Allie, we won't have it for a few more minutes. We've talked a lot about offense. I wanted everyone's take on the defense, and I promised that tonight we would talk a little bit more about the defense, which I thought played pretty decent, minus the first play of the game. What was your take on the defensive scheme? What did you feel like? Were they better or worse than last year?
They were a lot better. I thought defense was much improved. Tackling in particular was a lot better. That was something I harped on every single week last year. So I was excited to see an improvement there. I think it took Austin Armstrong a while to get the defensive play calls in. If you saw, like, our defense was very rarely, like just barely set by the time that ball is snapped. I think that that's something we can see improvement in really quickly, though. This is the first game he's ever called as a defensive coordinator. You can only go up from there, essentially. Our D-line, this is something Kurt Herbstreit said in the game, and I know Kurt has no love lost for Florida, but he's right. He said Florida's bigger, but I don't know that they're faster. And when we watched the Florida scrimmage, that was something that all the former players around me were saying. They were like, man, they're not that fast. This defensive line is not that fast. And they aren't. But if you're not going to be fast, you sure as hell better be intense. And so I think, no sacks, no hurries is not something that I love. But I still think overall the defense really did improve a lot. Linebackers looked much better. Shamar James is a total stud.
Oh, boy, he had a good game.
He had a fantastic game. He is the real deal. It's been a while. It's since we've had consistent linebacker play, and I think we could get that this year. And all of those things are huge positives.
Yeah, buddy, what do you think?
I'm looking at the list of players that Billy credited today. He called out.
Yeah.
Jordan Castell, the young safety, TJ Searcy, Kelby Collins, a guy we'll be hearing a lot about, Jakeem Jackson, Deshaun Johnson, Sharif Denson, Bryce Thornton, Trayon Webb, Kenija Harris. So they were So the future is very bright for this team. Absolutely. The present is in question.
Yeah. But there has to be time for growth. And I think that Gator fans know that in general. I just think the way that it's happened was a little bit frustrating. It was frustrating to see the same mistakes that we saw last year not improve. It was frustrating to watch us shoot ourselves in the foot. I don't think that the loss is really all that surprising to most people. It's just the way it happened. But this could just be a footnote on this season. Florida comes out this week. They take care of business against McNeese State. They get a tune-up. Some young guys get some reps. If they beat Tennessee in 2 weeks,
it's all is forgiven. Come home.
All is forgiven.
All is forgiven. It's a new season already. So I think we've got to caution people. Don't get too down. Don't get too up. Take the season as a whole. At the end, we'll kind of evaluate. But I get it. It's frustrating to watch what seems to be simple procedural mistakes and things like that shoot us in the foot.
Yeah, and I can just say one thing real quick, because Allie, of all people, should be crowing about this. Wall Street Journal today named University of Florida the #1 public university in the country.
Yes.
Now, I tell you what, that's an honor right there.
It is.
Allie, you had 100 of your relatives that went to Florida, so you should really be happy about that. I'm happy about it. Congratulations. Academics do matter, and I think it's a feather in their cap. In a minute, we're going to hear from Ron Zook. Our friend Lauren Meadows is there at the quarterback club. He has a couple things to say, including something about Ben Troop. And I loved what Tariq Sapp said today. He said he sees the criticism of Florida. He enjoys the premature disrespect for this team. I love it. I want all that smoke. That's my kind of guy right there.
I love it too. Let's see it translate onto the field on Saturday.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard it referred to as smoke, but
I like it though. I like it.
I guess it's a new era. I guess.
Well, he meant heat probably, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's something young people say. Okay.
I know. I'm kidding. It's a little joke. I want all that shade. Maybe. I guess I'm trying to be hip. I don't know if that's a thing. I'm feeling my age, Ellie. That's okay. Buddy, what do you want to do here?
Well, I want to do. I'd like to. I'm sure Ellie's got to put her twins to bed.
She does.
I'm sure David's going to be disappointed that she's not here because he's sitting there in the green room right now.
He's in the orange and blue room right now.
We got to do a quick spot for sure there, and we have that interview with Lauren and Coach Zook. So it's your call, your producer.
All right, first of all,
Allie can hang. Great. If she can't, then she got to go.
I'm sure Allie's got to go, and she'll say nice things like she could hang. But I want to tell Allie, where can people find your show and your YouTube channel? I've got your logo up next to you right there.
You can go to YouTube, A Peek Inside Gator Football. You should be able to find me. And then on Twitter, @Allie_Peek. You can find me there as well. And whoever asked me for that popcorn link, I'll put it in the chat when we're done.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
All right. So sweet and sour, and sweet's gone. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Allie. We always appreciate to have you. We will talk to you next week, and we'll make sure to watch your show. Thanks again.
Great job, Allie. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good night. All right, buddy. You want to do your
I do
ad?
want to do a spot. Yes.
All right.
Love Allie. Allie has a lot of fans on this channel right here. A lot of
Yeah.
them. Titan MRI, we thank them for supporting our program. They're worth a short drive to Gainesville. No insurance is no problem. You can pay with cash or card, same day scheduling. Start feeling better today because Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier.
Number one.
Premier. That means number one. Independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of people and patients are visiting Gainesville, location from Ocala, Marion County, and the villages all over going to Titan MRI. It's TitanMRI.com. Do we have that Lauren Meadows interview now?
You want to go to that now? I think Mr. Moulton should come into the show.
Let's give Mr. Moulton. He might want to hear it too. So.
Well, I know. I want to say hi to another one of my favorite guests. That's why I didn't want to tell Allie. Hello, Mr. Moulton. David Moulton joins us on the show.
Gentlemen, how are you?
David.
We're dealing with the fallout this week, as you can imagine. I'm sure you've heard plenty of it. But David, tell people where they can find it on the radio dial. I always like to let people to promote their deal.
We're in 4 markets along I-75, Lake City, Tampa, St. Pete, Port Charlotte, Venice, and Fort Myers, Naples. There's a few different apps you can find us on. FloridaSportsNetwork.com is the website. And hopefully we'll have a significant announcement before the month is up about Gainesville, Ocala.
Oh,
fantastic.
I would like that. I would like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, did you watch the football game?
Yes. And I have to admit the reaction on our show was shockingly angry and negative.
Yeah,
I was
everywhere.
I was surprised. I don't know. Maybe it's because I just didn't think they were going to win. But they held Utah to 270 total yards. It's seemingly everything that went wrong or they did wrong was correctable. I mean, the one turnover on offense, that's a play that wide receiver should make, quite frankly, at high school. That pass never should have been picked off. After the first play of the game in which the receiver was double covered and they run into each other and he goes for a touchdown, they held Utah to 200 total yards of offense, barely over 100 yards rushing. They stopped them 10 out of 13 times on third down. Do you think that they'll have 2 players on the field with the same number again? Probably not for at least 3 years.
I would hope not, because I've never even seen that.
The procedure penalties and what have you with 4 new linemen and a bunch of young receivers and backs. I mean, did anybody think that we're going to play a perfectly clean game on the road in Utah? I didn't. Now, were some of the penalties staggeringly costly? Yes. But to me, virtually everything that went wrong was correctable, and there were things they did right. Quite frankly, considering the pressure Mertz was under, I thought he played above average, a lot better than I thought he was going to play.
Me too.
Now, he holds on to the ball a little bit too long, and he stares guys down, and that could come back to haunt him as well. But listen, maybe it's because I went into the game looking at the Gators as the glass half empty, and most Gator fans went into the game thinking the glass was at least 3/4 full, that my reaction was, well, damn, they can correct all this, and they got 2 weeks to do it before Tennessee. And there's a lot to build on here. Also, the one area where I was right, and with all due respect, everybody who I was on with a week ago was wrong, was I knew the offensive line was going to struggle. I'm sorry. That was a tough opener. 4 new linemen, including a brand new center. I mean, I'm sorry. I just thought they were going to struggle, and they did. I got to be honest. I mean, I don't know. Listen, I'm the guy who's accused of being unbelievably negative here, but I came out of the game and thought, man, if I'm the coaches, I could put together a highlight reel of all the stuff we did right, and of the 6-8 things if we correct, we might have won this damn game, for goodness sakes. Honestly, and we can literally correct all this stuff. I don't know. Now if they get whacked by Tennessee and 10 days, then I'm an idiot. But
that's it. That's the key right there. If they beat Tennessee, all is forgiven. They can start talking about 7-8 wins this year. But you did have to know this is not the hard part of the schedule, except for 2 games. And the last 6 are pretty brutal. So they got to make hay here, and they've lost. And the other thing is, It wasn't just that they lost; it's how they lost, and the mistakes drive you crazy.
I get it. I get it. But they played a ton of new and young people on the road in not a friend. Brenden, you were there. I mean, I know much was made. Oh, it's only 55,000 people versus Tiger Stadium on a Saturday night. Come on, man. That was not a high school arena. That's not going to Louisville there. Yeah. That's not going to Illinois. I'm sorry. They hadn't lost there in 3 years. They were a top 15 team in the country. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. This is... Once again, though, this is scheduling. I think if they had played, McNeese first and Utah second, all right, they would have played a much cleaner game. But this is what happens.
Because
also,
the ESPN wanted that game
well, but
out of the box. So that's
but you opened with it last year and you pulled it out. But I'm just saying you had an experienced offensive line last year. You had a quarterback who at least had started a little bit, and he was talented enough to go 4th overall in the draft. I mean, you had advantages last year and at home that you didn't have this year. I don't know. I read a couple of people who I respect who were like comparing Billy Napier to Willie Taggart. I mean, I'm like, oh, take it easy now. Let's take a deep breath. I mean, the one thing I will say also, a lot of times we compare the Gators to other close programs. First, it was Georgia. Now Florida State looks like they're Florida State again, and that's going to bring a lot more heat on Billy and his staff. Well, Norvell and company are in year 4. Do you remember where Norvell and company were at this time in year 2? They just lost to Jacksonville State, and his lifetime record at Florida State was 3-8. Okay, gotta just need a little bit of time. Unfortunately, the schedule this year and the schedule next year is not advantageous. It's not. The AD did not do the guy he hired any favors, and I think because of it, the high school recruiting news is great. They're going to have to hit the transfer portal hard if they want to improve quickly. I mean, take a look at Florida State. I mean, even Georgia brought in 4 starters this year in the portal. I mean, look at Colorado. I mean, if you really want to improve quickly, you got to go the portal, not the high school 4 and 5 stars.
No, David, let me ask you a question, David. Excuse me, Brenden. Who felt worse after the openers? Dabo, Brian Kelly, or Sonny Dykes? Because Billy didn't do all that bad when you look at it like that, right?
Yeah, but that can't be the bar. I'll say this: Sonny Dykes hinted at there may be some chemistry issues at TCU. He seemed actually the most concerned. Brian Kelly and Clemson both have top 10 talent. TCU lost 7 guys to the NFL draft. I think Sonny knows this ain't last year's team.
Well, they were the 17th ranked team in the country.
I understand that.
A team that won 1 game last year.
I understand. And defensively, they got gouged just like they did against Georgia. And when you play a bunch of man in modern football, if you don't get to the quarterback and he's an elite player, you can get picked apart. And that's what happened again.
Okay. Your witness, Brenden, where'd you go? He had obviously homework issues to deal with. All right, so let's talk about FSU. They were really impressive, David. I mean, defensively, they looked like studs. In that second half they put on LSU, this is a really good. They are a top 5 team, in my opinion.
I mean, this is painful for a Gator fan to acknowledge.
It is.
But they look like Florida State again. They look like they got dudes all over the place. Wide receivers who couldn't be covered, a quarterback who's elite, defensive players who couldn't be blocked.
New wide receiver.
I mean, Mickey Andrews watched this game somewhere and said, I remember when Florida State used to play like that. I mean, that was impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive. And they're deep. Why? Because they have hit the portal for 2 years. 2 years. I mean, their number 2 receiver, they was the number 1 receiver on Michigan State last year. That's the type of impact you need to make in the portal.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's talk a little tennis. How about that Ben Shelton? People have been waiting to talk about it.
It's awesome.
What a story, huh?
And, obviously the 20-year-old hard-hitting lefty American, make the comparisons. You want to go to Roddick, you want to go McEnroe, whatever. But to think, this could be the biggest weekend in U.S. tennis in at least 20 years. At least 20 years. You've got two American women in the semis on opposite ends of the draw. In theory, Goff and Keys could face one another for the U.S. Open. And Friday, Shelton's going to take on Joker. And with a big serve at the U.S. Open, buddy, you and I are old enough to remember when Roscoe Tanner took out Bjorn Borg at the height of his game. Why? Because he was a big serving lefty, and if you can't
110 miles an hour, whatever.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully he plays well. That the moment's not too big for him, and usually Djokovic will grind guys like that down and withstand the storm. But I just hope he plays well.
This kid's got some resilience. He's got a little theater and a little showbiz about him.
Mm-hmm. No question about it.
Maybe everybody does this, and I didn't see it, but I loved after the match is over. He was just drinking it all and looking up there, talking about how great it was. He took 6 balls, signed them all, and hit each one of them to the stands. That's pretty cool. And
I will say that's pretty standard stuff in tennis. It is. And he's been.
I don't watch much tennis anymore, so I don't know.
But he's never been in the semis of a slam. He's playing arguably the greatest player of all time. And so, hopefully he handles the moment. That's all. I hope he settles in and plays to the best of his abilities as quickly as possible. And let's face it, if he brings his A game from a serving standpoint, he'll stay in the match because he won't get broken that often.
Yeah, he's the first skater, I think, to make it into semifinals, I believe. So we'll be watching this. All right, David, looking down the schedule for the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I got my card in front of me tonight for the Ocala Quarterback Club. Let me give you a couple of games and you pick them for me, all right?
Okay.
All right.
By the way, on my show, I went 2-5 against the number. Now, the Gator game, unfortunately, didn't count. They wouldn't let me do Thursday. I would have gotten that one right.
Okay. All right, let's go Colorado, Nebraska. Nebraska, I think, gets 3.
I've seen it as high as 5. I would lay the points with Colorado. How about this? Colorado, who's over-unders 3.5, might start the year 3-0 because I think after Nebraska, they have Colorado State.
Yeah, they're not very good. All right, let's go NC State. They get 7.5 versus Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I think Notre Dame with a late cover, and I like him because Hartman is a terrific player. And he's also played NC State in that environment before, so he won't be intimidated. This will be good for Notre Dame to get their feet wet for 2 weeks later when they host Ohio State.
I don't know if you have this game or not, but the game of the week is Alabama, Texas. Texas
gets
7.
Yeah, listen, until Texas wins one of these games, I don't know how you can pick them. I know Sarkisian showed nothing last week. Texas looked very vanilla. I think this is the best Alabama defense in about 5-6 years. And also Alabama gets to play a card they never get to play before because a lot of people are picking Texas and a lot of people badmouth Alabama after they snuck out of Austin last year with a W. And so Nick is playing a card that he doesn't often get to play, which is a little bit of the no respect card. If Alabama plays a 1 turnover or less game, I think they will win and cover. Sorry, Texas, you got to prove it before I put money on you.
All right, this is an interesting game for UCF. Now the Big 12, we keep forgetting that. Boise State gets 3.5.
Yeah, Boise State getting points at home. Yeah. I mean, from a betting standpoint, you should take the Broncos. But to me, this is a game where John Reese Plumlee and Gus Malzahn, quite frankly, have to be the better coach and quarterback on the field. But from a betting standpoint, buddy, it's tough to bet against the Blue Turf team at home. Getting points.
Team we don't know much about, could be better than we think. Auburn. California, the game's at Cal. They get 6.5, David.
Who gets 6.5?
California.
Yeah. The Pac-12 is really good this year. It's a shame. They're going to go out being probably the 3rd best conference in the country this year. I mean, I think they'll make the case at the end of the year they're deeper than the Big 12 and even the ACC. I really do, for whatever that's worth. But I'll take the home team in the points. Auburn, it's still a work in progress with Hugh. Not sure they're settled at quarterback. I'll take the points.
And final one, and I'll give it back to Brenden. He's sitting there waiting on me to stop talking. This is an interesting game as well. Lost my place.
Miami A&M?
Yes, Miami A&M. 4.5 I got on Miami.
Yeah, Miami getting 4.5 at home, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. This, I think, is a huge game for both programs. Absolutely huge. Turns out after last week, the SEC needs to win a couple of these non-conference games. They didn't do that well non-conference last week. I'm not sold on Miami's quarterback. Okay. I'm really not. Also, I think Jimbo is a better in-game coach than Mario. I'll actually take A&M.
Okay. Brenden, we have a spot to play.
You want to play Meldon Law? We can, but all right, we'll be right back here. Go ahead, David.
I'll just throw this out there. My upset of the week, I like Tulane at home straight up against Ole Miss, even though they're getting 7.5. Ole Miss has a couple key injuries, which I think will hurt them in this game. Okay. And 2 weeks down the road, they play Alabama. I'll take Tulane straight up.
Okay.
Tulane straight up. What's the point spread?
Tulane's getting 7.5.
Yeah. Getting 7.5. Okay. Well, I think I agree with you. All right, so we will be more with David Moulton when we come back from this break. We're going to hear quickly from our sponsor over at Meldon Law right after this.
Getting back to Swamp Kings, I think I was impressed. I really didn't understand how hard he worked, how hard Urban Meyer worked at getting that team ready to compete in the SEC and on a national stage.
You think maybe Gator fans will value their championship legacy just a little bit more now?
I hope so. I never got it. I didn't understand why people didn't say take Urban at his word when he said he was really sick. I understand that he went back to Ohio State, but he did take a year off and do his ESPN thing. And it's in your blood when you're a college coach. It's almost like you're willing to sacrifice your life in order to have the ability to lead a team to a national championship.
No doubt. I'm going to issue an invitation to you right now. Urban's coming to Gainesville the week of Vanderbilt, and I'm going to take him out to Spurrier's for a bite to eat, and you're invited. How's that sound?
I would love to do that. Actually, his daughters both won the Meldon Law TV 20 Scholar Athlete.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And so we got to know the family a little then. And, I'll tell you, Urban really should be admired by Gator fans, and they should understand that he was here for 6 years? 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
6 years. Nowadays, that's a long time in a coach's career, right? And they're like, oh, he jilted us. It was like, my girlfriend dumped me,
Oh, Jeffrey Meldon, we talk.
All right, Lauren Meadows with Gator Bait here with Coach Ron Zook, just a couple Ohio guys talking a little football. And Coach, really appreciate you coming out talking to the Ocala Quarterback Club tonight. And one of the things you talked about was you mentioned with the changes in college football and things like that's not what football was to you. What is football to you?
Well, football is a game that teaches you to get up when you get knocked down. It's a lot of tough times. It's not easy. It's something that you gotta, when you don't think you can go another step, you gotta take another step. And it's just, if you're in a situation that it's not good, you fight through it. And sometimes I'm worried that maybe it's not that way anymore. And you just change it. You just get up and go someplace else. It's you play the game because you love the game. And as I said, I just think it taught me about perseverance, teamwork, and all the things that you got to have to be a successful team.
Yes, sir. Now, what would you tell, if you were giving advice to, some of these younger coaches? A lot of them getting into the game, at a young age with the changes in college football. I mean, what advice would you give them to kind of handle things? I mean, you're still part of it in some ways, but what advice would you give them?
I think you have to keep up with the changes. I mean, because it's going to change. It's not going to go backwards. And the thing you have to do is figure out a way, what you have, and figure out a way to make it successful. But you got to stay up with the times. I mean, it's moving fast. And if the portal's the answer, then you got to know everybody that's in the portal. If the NIL's the deal, then hopefully you're in a situation where you can get the money necessary, the things necessary to help you with players. But it still comes down to people. I still think football is a people business. And it's about people. And hopefully, as you're doing your recruiting and you get on them early enough to know that they realize that, hey, it is about people, and you want to be around the kind of people that are going to be there when times get tough.
Right. All right, thanks very much, Lauren Meadows. That was the guy you might remember, David. In retrospect, Ron Zook doesn't look too bad in the rearview mirror.
Well, he was an outstanding recruiter, and also, had some huge wins. What did him in, obviously, were a handful of losses that, at the time, it was like, wait a minute, Florida should not be losing to these schools. And when he lost in Starkville, he got fired walking off the field, basically. But, LSU won the national title in 2003 with Nick Saban, and their only loss was at home to Ron Zook and the Gators.
Yeah. And that didn't help that Ron that had a guy waiting in the wings named Urban Meyer, who the president wanted.
Well, and also Notre Dame, it looked like might have an opening. And so it was kind of like, listen, we need to get Urban before Notre Dame grabs him. And if we let this go much further, then Notre Dame's going to be able to grab him. So, yeah, Florida acted about 3-4 weeks before Notre Dame was ready to act.
Little known fact, Urban took the job at Notre Dame and then changed his mind.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep.
He took the job?
In the book, yeah.
In the book. Oh, yeah. I do remember that. Mr. Moulton, David Moulton, that's who we're talking to tonight, if everybody was wondering. We talked a little bit last time you were on about defense. I wanted to get your take on what I felt the defense, other than the first play of the game, it was pretty good on the road, pretty hostile place.
Yep.
I thought Austin Armstrong had a pretty good scheme. I don't think we saw, in my opinion, I don't think we saw what we're going to probably see more of who he is like in the swamp this weekend. But I think he called a pretty conservative yet a strong game and got his players used to it. I wanted to get your take on it.
Listen, 270 total yards and stopped them 10 of 13 times on third down after the way the defense played last year. Gator fans had to be, I thought, ecstatic with the way think about it. A bomb for 7, the whole special teams foul up. The muffed situation cost them more points, or the interception cost them 7. The defense, I thought, played pretty darn well, quite frankly. Now, Utah was pretty conservative, though. Yeah. And the Tennessee team they're going to face in 10 days is going to be anything but. And a quarterback with a lot more talent than the one they just faced. Yeah. The Gators need to find a pass rush. They do. They're going to have to get to Moulton. He makes mistakes.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. But you've got to force them. Yeah. All right. So they got 10 days to figure out, the Gator defense for a while now has A, not gotten a consistent pass rush, and B, not forced turnovers. They're probably going to have to do both if they're going to want to upset one of these top 15 teams that they have on the schedule. And they got 4 or 5 of them.
Well, so, and that's what it felt like offensively and defensively. We're talking defense right now. There was just no push and no pressure. You can't give any quarterback in college football that much time. There plenty of time to develop. I think if Cam Rising would have been in the game, we would have been looking at a different score. I think we'd be talking about a different outcome.
Well, I don't know about different outcome, a different score.
Different score, higher score, I should say, a differential score. I think it would have been a bigger sort of a blowout. But I feel like he was called a conservative, sort of get his feet wet kind of game to see what, I think we're going to see more of it against McNeese State this week. More of his blitzing style stunts and things of that nature. But you got to have a better, and I felt like offensive line might be bigger, but they were slower. And I think that was probably one of the biggest complaints on my end, at least for watching it.
All right, David, great stuff. Wind up your thoughts with what you see ahead this week in college football, David.
Well, to me, it's a huge week again for the SEC in non-conference play. I mean, Ole Miss playing a ranked team on the road, A&M playing Miami on the road. Can Alabama defend home turf against Texas? So I'm curious how the SEC does, quite frankly, in non-conference play this week.
What game will you be at, David?
Well, we're going to the Big House for that Titanic showdown of UNLV and Michigan. Now, if this was Jerry Tarkanian against the Fab Five with Steve Fisher, with Larry Johnson and what have you on one side, this would be incredible. But the good thing for us is we saw Ohio State last week. We'll see Michigan this week. And we're going to see Georgia in 10 days. We're going to see Penn State following that. So we will have seen 4 of the top 6 or 7 teams in the country in the first 4 weeks of the year, which will at least be, good compare, contrast, discussion.
Have a great trip to Ann Arbor, David. Great stuff as always. We'll see.
Thanks, David.
You all right?
Guys, be well. Thanks for the invite.
The great David Moulton, always bringing it. Good stuff. Right?
Always bringing it, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's just full of information.
Yeah.
That guy.
Let me do the Red Star ad so we can say goodnight. Thanks to folks up at Red Star. They've done a fantastic job as a stakeholder in downtown Ocala, looking after our health. They have a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility. Red Star Medical Research brings cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like fibromyalgia, Alzheimer's, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, many other things that affect us in our community. Over 700 clinical trials been done there at Red Star, and they send the data to big pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry and trying to find out what we need to do to get better health. Red Star Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's
answers to the health
questions of today. Good show, Brenden. Good job. Allie was great. Good to have David. And thanks to our buddy Lauren Meadows. We have another bite on that interview. We'll save till tomorrow night when Ron Zook been talking to Ben Troop about what Ron Zook said about it. All right?
All right. Well, all right. Thanks, Dad. I love you. Good job there tonight. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. For the rest of you folks who are sticking on, I just want to tell you a little bit about GatorbaitMedia.com. If you are looking for the best information and the best writers in the business, well, just hike on over to GatorbaitMedia.com. We are running our special still. Take a 20% off our all-access annual membership by putting in discount code WINNING, Tiger Blood, WINNING. If you guys know who that is. Maybe an extra 5% if you know who that is in the chat. Nonetheless, head on over there, sign up for the All Access Annual Membership, and you will be super happy that you did. Reed Franz Beard, Lauren Meadows, Buddy Martin, Kyle Curtis, Quacho, which is, we got to get him back on the show. He's fantastic. Matt Corderaro, and great photos by Chris Spears. Awesome stuff. Really good analysis and comments, and just gotta love it. If you're a Gator fan, that's where you got to be. By the way, if you are still watching and you're one of the 53% of the people that have not subscribed to this damn show, then subscribe to the show. Subscribe right down here, bottom right over here. Subscribe, click it. It's free. It's not going to cost you anything. You're getting a notification, and then you are going to help the Buddy Martin Show make money. Yes, we're almost at 1,400 subscribers. That's 1,400 people in 1 month. Hey, hats off to you all. Hats off. There we go. Hats off. Speaking of hats off, we got merch coming, all that good stuff. Hey, thanks to everybody who always joins the show. Make sure you tune in tomorrow night for what? The Orange and Blue Blood Show. That's right. We're going to have Lauren Meadows, the Franz Beard, Buddy Martin, myself, the cast of 1,000. Who knows will be showing up for the Orange and Blue Blood. And usually we try to take a comment or whatever in there from you. One day we're going to endeavor get some phone lines in here. But hey, we're trying. Thanks to everybody who's continued to support us. We couldn't do it without you. And I think that's it. I think I got it all in. I'm Brenden Martin. You don't need to know that. But hey, if you got any problems, you can always email me, Brenden at GatorbaitMedia.com for any comments and suggestions. Whew. Got it all in. Thanks to our guests, Allie Peak Wilbur, David Moulton. Thanks for Lauren Meadows talking to Ron Zook. Thank you to Zooker coach Ron Zook. Great guy, lives around here. Always a pleasure to have that guy on. And we will talk to you folks tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody.